When we see a deliberate literary structure, we know that there's an author. When that structure contains masterpieces like Shakespeare, we can deduct the high level of intelligence of that author. When we see these perfectly precise stories and structures unfold in redemptive history over the course of generations, it's a very telling sign about the intelligence and care of the author of history. Last week, we took a look at the detailed precision in the universe at large. Seeing this meticulous detail in the design of the universe encourages us that the God in control of it is also capable of working together all of the minute details of our lives. This week, I want to take a look at one other anomaly that can reinforce this same trust. The amount of detail and perfection that went into God's redemptive plan and the scriptures themselves. The biblical stories fit into such a perfect symmetry with one another that the Bible in some ways appears to have been written by the same author. So much so that I would have had a hard time believing it wasn't if the events described weren't proven in history to have happened thousands of years apart. For example, certain prophecies and promises that were given to the nation of Israel, we know that they were given at certain time periods due to extra biblical historical sources, and even reference to them celebrating certain holidays that pertain to those promises thousands of years prior to when the promises were fulfilled in history. These fulfilled prophecies and historical chiasms prove that nothing is out of place in your life. God is involved in every detail and nothing is wasted. It is all being carefully knitted together into an epic story. God left hundreds of models, types, shadows, prophecies, and nuggets in times past and then brought them into full circle. There's so many of them that if I were to spoon feed them to you, we would be here all day. But I want to encourage you to read about some of them for yourselves by Googling them or simply reading through the scriptures. God set up so many interesting parallels in history to teach us about who He is and who we are to Him. These parallels happen in history, but they're also masterfully laid out in the scriptures. If someone were to ask what the best commentary on the Bible was, I would say the Bible itself. The purpose of these literary structures that were built into the text was to help give insight through parallels, opposites, and connections. Often on one side of the chiasm, we might see symbolism that's defined in a story on the other side of the chiasm. Some of these parallels are very obvious, and others are up for debate. In Western literature, we often tell stories in chronological order, with the climax being near the end. In ancient times, however, the climax was in the middle. This difference has led to some confusion when interpreting certain stories, but once you see the structure, everything makes so much more sense. The term chiasm comes from the Greek letter chi, which looks like our letter X. A chiasm, or it's also called a chiasmus, is a literary device in which a sequence of ideas is presented and then repeated in reverse order. The result is a mirror effect. As the ideas are reflected back in a passage, each idea is connected to its reflection by a repeated word or idea that's often in a related form. The center of the chiasm highlights the main point that the author wants the reader to get. The chiastic structure is often also called ring structure because it creates this complete circle. This device is commonly found in ancient literature and is used extensively in the Hebrew Bible. For example, Exodus 24, 1 through 11 uses a chiastic literary structure to highlight the covenant between God and His people. As we mentioned in the chiasm, the main point is also the center point of the chiasm. So in this case, the center is the meeting of God with His people. The book of Exodus is a literary masterpiece. You can divide it in half and all the pieces will have a parallel. You can divide it in thirds. You can divide it in 4, and you can divide it in 7, and all of the pieces will have a parallel. If you're interested in learning more about chiasms and literary structure in the Bible, please read the full blog by clicking the link below. My name is Lisa Lewalt with Fire Life Ministries, and I hope you all have a blessed week.